But I did not like how it got me. Like that shirt made me look like I was 50 pounds. Mhm. Yeah, yeah. No, the picture, you shorts, and like juicy, but it made me look fat.
Locals are screwing up. Awesome, right? Locals are screwing up. It's not going to lie. All right, there it is. Took forever, but there it is. Bam, 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 bam. Took forever. Welcome inside the numbers. It is Monday, October 9th, the best day in the world. Just playing. Thanks for all the well wishes. Look, last week, don't forget to like and share, folks. Like and share. Last week, episode 400 was about RFK and his impact on the race, which we're going to have in great detail all week because there's just so much to go over in this poll. But yeah, we got over 800 and something views. I'd have to go and look. It's on its, it was on its way to about a mil, but it doesn't look. Maybe we'll get there. Maybe we will. But either way, exploded. High interest stuff. Got picked up by a bunch of people, including Revolver. We love you guys over at Revolver. Thanks for that. So those are big deals. The likes, the views, that's all a big deal. Helps us out a lot. So if you like the shows, don't forget to like it, subscribe, do what you do, hit the notification bell, let it know, like and share far and wide. All right, we're gonna have Will Scharf on to talk about the motions the Trump, the Trump Team Trump filed to dismiss the DC case and others. But this isn't a legal theory that he's the lawyer. I'm not going to go into it right now. We'll ask him about it, but it's a legal theory I've heard a lot of people talk about. I even spoke to like this liberal in Philadelphia, and he said that was the obvious for him that presidents have presidential immunity basically from this stuff, and that you have other people claiming privilege though, and they get hauled in front of a jury, which is a ideologically possessed jury that's going to find them guilty no matter what. Like people like Peter Navarro, Steve Bannon. So we'll talk to him about that. We'll see what the appellate courts may have to say about it, and we'll also ask him about these attacks. Look, it's being called the 9/11 of Israel. The attacks Hamas have launched onto Israel. And then, of course, it broke out this big debate, especially over the weekend. What do we do about this? Here's my initial problem with intervention. And I think the Israelis, I've always thought personally that the Israelis are different because the Israelis fight their own wars. You have Ukraine out there, just being bloodlet, basically. They'll be bled dry, and then they'll eventually beg us to have boots on the ground, and we'll do it. We'll put Green Berets there first. They're already Green Berets there. They're lying to you. I know people from Bragg who shipped out a long time ago. There will already be advisors, but they'll ramp that up. And then eventually, if that doesn't work, if something does not change, an administration does not change, they don't course correct, then unfortunately that will escalate. So my issue with this is, that we're not prepared to fight any. We have a lot of problems at home, but the difference with the Israelis is that if you support the Israelis, they support themselves. This has to be brought up. And I'm not going to play all the videos of the demonstrators. I think you all saw them, but we're going to have to come to grips here. The American media is disgusting, and they're still like, pretending like they're still sympathetic to Hamas, many of them. But, there are others that have been doing the devil's work on this for years and then claim they're pro-Israel when this inevitable, and I hate to say it, but it was an inevitable event like this happens. And they want us to ignore the fact that, folks, a good chunk of the Democratic Party is pro-Hamas. I mean, we're going to show a couple of clips. I'll show it to Will when we get there. I want to start off talking about Kentucky, but this is something that's been like a dirty little secret. And the media wants you to think it's just like AOC. And it is. It's AOC. It's Rashida Tlaib. It's Ilhan Omar. And we'll show you where it started. But Hamas tied terrorists in suits have walked the halls of our Congress. So I don't know how we could seriously discuss this without talking about that. When I was in college the second time, and I was like, wanted to just take a break and do other things, studying international relations, most of, including a Jewish professor, was pro-Hamas. This is something that's been inside our society for a while. And while the American people have always stood with Israel, it's getting less so over time because newer generations of people on the left are super pro-Hamas. Now, we keep hearing about these like moral equivalency. I know I'm going on and on about this, and I want to get to Kentucky, but keep hearing these, moral equivalencies from people. What is happening to Israelis right now is, you show me, if you want to show me clips of what Hamas has done over the last 4 days, if you want to show me clips of that, of Israelis doing it to the Palestinians, I'd be happy to see them. But I've not seen a video clip of Israeli soldiers dragging Palestinian women out of their homes and raping them. I don't see them kidnapping them, children, civilians, killing them, holding them for ransom. Like that, folks, come on. A fight is a fight. A war is a war. That's not what this is. Well, it is now, but what the Palestinians have done. And again, I just want to say, and we'll discuss this more with Will. I got another thing loaded up. The change in everything that Trump was doing, the Biden administration felt they had to undo and reverse. And this is the consequence of that. Making comments like, oh, the world wasn't at peace when Trump was president. As much as it can be, it was. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. The Abraham Accords, like the final broken piece of their puzzle to destroy everything that was leading to stability in the international system. And we know for a fact our own allies are being shot with our guns. It's just pathetic. It's pathetic. It's pathetic. And this idea, like, you can't use that money, can't be used for military stuff. Oh, shut up. Shut up. Oh my God. Were you born yesterday? So stupid. Who's watching? Who's overseeing? Forget about the fact that they could take that money, put it towards other things, and then free up additional funds to spend on, attacking innocent people. Where is the commission overseeing this with teeth? Get the hell out of here. They're all a bunch of corrupt pieces of trash. All right. I want to talk about why we cannot count out Daniel Cameron. People, and I just got like several notices from locals. By the way, guys, if I don't answer you on locals, just bug me in the chats and stuff and just keep hitting me. But support locals. They'll be the first to tell you that's support, unless I say like, hey guys, we need a developer. If you want to make some extra money, hit me up through support or something. Don't use questions for support because we get yelled at. But yeah, basically I did get a bunch about Kentucky, and I was gearing up to do this. I don't want to poll Kentucky. I don't. Kentucky is a death trap for a pollster. And I don't think people understand how bad polls in Kentucky have been. Oh, since God now, almost 10 years, nobody has polled Kentucky correctly. In 40 something polls that we looked at since 2014, there was all of one poll that did not understate Republican support. And that was a single poll, Trafalgar, that actually had Bevin up a little, and he lost. But yet everybody had Bashir winning and winning going away. It's a major problem, and it's why we can't count Daniel Cameron out of this thing. Some polls have Bashir up by 16. I think that's ridiculous. People's own internals do not have a race that's blown up like that. And let's take a trip down memory lane, and I want to show you, because I want to show you how severe this problem is. All right. For a long time, the Courier Journal had the Bluegrass poll. It was conducted by Survey USA. All right, on November 4th, 2015, the Courier Journal published this to their readers. Are you ready? To our readers, share far and wide, share far and wide. To our readers, the wide gulf between the results of Tuesday's election races and the most recent Bluegrass poll is a source of frustration for the Courier Journal and its media partners, as well as for our pollster, Survey USA, especially after a similarly huge difference in last fall's U.S. Senate race. Oh boy, yeah, there were some major blunders. As a result, we are rethinking our approach to election research and plan to make future changes to future campaigns. Depending on how we proceed, we will look for a new research firm and no longer will use Survey USA. Okay? Listen, they flopped so bad, and I'm going to show you some of this polling. They flopped so bad that they fired Survey USA. All right? 2014. And this had been going on with Mitch McConnell for a long time, but 2014, there is this talk that Mitch McConnell and others are in deep trouble. And at the end of the day, that didn't happen. In 2015, I'll show you Sandy Overly got crushed. Bevin beat him like a drum. And yet that was not shown to be the case. That was not predicted. All right. So, yeah, I mean, there you have it. I think there was one poll. I think Vox had Bevin up. Everybody had, what's his name up? Conway. What did I say? Say she was the lieutenant governor. Sorry. Jack Conway. And then Matt Bevin surprisingly won. And just to give you a brief before we keep going on, the final Vox, however, did not have Bevin up. A couple of days later, after publishing a Bevin +3 with a 3.9 margin of error. A couple of days later, on October 27th, they changed it. Or actually, it was October 27th was the final day that they had come out with the Bevin +3. That right before the election, they drop another one with 618, and it says that the race is tied. Bevin won. He won fairly easily. Just so for those who don't remember, Bevin won 52.5 to 43.8. I mean, it was a pretty early night, right? But that's not what the polling showed. Survey USA for the Bluegrass poll had Conway beating Bevin by 5 points, way outside the 3.5% sampling error. And thank you guys. You keep funding the public polling project, and I really, really appreciate it, because we already pumped out the national poll, which we will process today. In locals, you will have it probably tonight, even though it's, the day it is today. I hate even bringing it up. I'm getting too old to care. But I will probably have it for you tonight, if not definitely tomorrow. And then we're going to talk about it all week long, even though we only have a few things that we asked about in the poll. It's just the details of the head-to-head matchups are so clear to me and so important. We really need to discuss it. WKU, Social Science Research Center, October 19th to the 25th, Conway +5. Not only the same margin as the Bluegrass poll, but the exact the exact share of support for both candidates. Understand they missed Matt Bevin's support by 13 points. They overstated Conway's support by a few points here and there, depending on the poll, but most polls missed Matt Bevin's support by 12 at least, upwards of even more, upwards of 16 points, one poll, which, by the way, another one was Survey USA. Just a month before, at the end of September, they released a poll showing Conway up by 5 again, 42-37. There have been some really, really bad blunders in Kentucky. In the 2014, we'll talk about it as well, but we've seen instances of Rand Paul looking like he's in trouble, and that did not happen. Toward the end, it kind of widens a little bit. And for instance, in 2014, McConnell, he was ahead by only 7 in the RCP average. He won by 16. He won by 16. And before that, you remember Allison Lundergan Grimes. There were polls showing Grimes ahead, including Survey USA, the Courier Journal, Bluegrass poll, Grimes +2. They think that's weird. They go back in the field and they find, okay, McConnell's actually up, but he's only up by a point. I kid you not, less than 2 weeks later. Then 7 days later, they think, maybe we're wrong. Let's go back in the field. It's really McConnell +5. He won by more than 3 times that margin. Magellan Strategies, a Republican firm, Grimes +3. In fact, the Courier Journal Bluegrass poll had Grimes up the entire time. Grimes +4, Grimes +3, Grimes +1, Grimes +2. They only had McConnell up in the very last week, representing a massive change. The truth is, Grimes was never up. Polling in Kentucky is very, very difficult. Very difficult. All right, so let's see. What do we got here? What do we got here? Let's keep reading, and then we go. And there's something else I just want to give you some stats. The Bluegrass poll has long been an important public service that we have been proud to present because of the insights it provides into races and issues. But changes in the electorate, particularly in Kentucky, have made polling more challenging, and such polls may no longer be the best way to gain an understanding of issues shaping voters' decisions. Survey USA has been a solid polling partner for us and many other media organizations. After last fall's Senate race, Survey USA worked to adjust its methodology to accommodate the changing Kentucky electorate. It's not that the electorate is changing so much. Its behavior was changing, and the industry was changing. We totally ignored every single one of the media polls in our 2014 election projection model, except for a panel of 120 independents that we ran ourselves. Kentucky is one of those states that caused me to understand early that geography and education were very, very, very big parts of, they were big contributing, if not the leading contributing factors to polling misses in the modern era. But the geography thing is so much more detailed. And there's some things I just don't want to obviously say publicly. There was a study after this that was really interesting by NBC and others, and they were looking into why polls have been this bad in Kentucky. But Kentucky is like in Ohio, right? You have a lot of Appalachia region, this working class, non-college white vote, doesn't want to talk, always ends up being overstating Democrat support with this group and understating their participation. To understand, if you're going to blow a race that badly, folks, 15, 16 points, we're not just talking about a little change in vote preference here. Well, I guess non-college whites were 2 points more of the electorate. No, we're talking huge, huge misses that can only be accounted for by not understanding at all who's voting and how they're going to vote. like a Biden plus 17 in Wisconsin. That's not a little miss. In the May primary this year, its poll predicted a tight race, though it overestimated the strength of Hal Hanner. In its defense, we have heard that of all other polls conducted by candidates or others shortly before Tuesday's election, none hinted at the wide margin Matt Bevin would ultimately receive. Absolutely true. And if I direct your attention to the primary, which Daniel Cameron won a couple of months ago, nobody predicted Daniel Cameron was going to win by that margin. The Emerson poll had him up, but modestly. He wound up winning by nearly double the expected margin he was going to win by. Nearly double. So when you look at the Emerson College poll and it shows, Daniel Cameron at what, 33 or 36%, it's wholly unbelievable, and we've seen it before. Andy Beshear is popular. He is. And we've seen this in southern states in the past. Bradenton. But when you have the support of Trump and it is such a pro-Trump state, it's hard to believe in this environment unless Republicans just don't vote. And we'll see. But to expect Daniel Cameron to come in at 33% is problematic. We recognize that the integrity of our news organization depends on delivering useful information and insights, and we remain committed to ensuring that we do. Neil Budd, the executive editor. Neil, don't feel bad. I want to read you guys something Brandon Finnegan wrote at the decision desk. All right, he's the director of elections. And he had this preview of the Kentucky gubernatorial race. But then they wrote an article about it. They put it up in their mailing thing, and I really just couldn't agree more. So instead of, I want to add some stuff to it, but let me just read this to you. The race between Democratic Governor Andy Beshear and Republican Attorney General Daniel Cameron will be one of this year's tightest contests. And Brandon explains why we're not getting a good read from surveys of the state. For pollsters, their sponsors, and poll-obsessed election geeks the country over, horse race polling in Kentucky has been the stuff of nightmares. After the 2015 gubernatorial race and hold on one second, Laura always yells at me when I don't do this when she's not there. All right, there you go, Laura. So now people can see me read. All right. All right. So has been the stuff of nightmares. After the 2015 gubernatorial race and the second acute polling misfire in a year, the Courier-Journal publicly ended their use of Survey USA. I was just explaining that to you. The state seems to bedevil every entity that tries to divine how Republican an election will end up. It's gotten to the point where only 2 nonpartisan polls have been released in Kentucky in the last 8 months. In other words, pollsters are afraid to poll Kentucky. They are terrified. Nobody has what Emerson has on either side of the aisle. Let me just tell you that. Internal polls have ranged from like Cameron plus 2 to 4 in the, Cameron wishful, or I would say Cameron like bullish, right? It's his side. To the Beshear having himself up between like 6 and 8, some ballpark. There have been those that fell outside of that, but that's ballpark it. In the past, that is not enough for a Democratic candidate for governor to feel confident. All right. On paper, Andy Beshear is formidable and absolutely true. His favorability ranks high in national surveys. You guys follow the Morning Consult for governors, finding him at 64-32 in July. 64%, 32 disapprove. Enviable for any Democrat in a state that has moved as much to the right as Kentucky has. He went up early and hard with TV ads for the general campaign. Beshear's campaign has outspent Cameron. Are you ready? I mean, this is why Republicans should be so angry with their party and their organization and the Republican Governors Association. Listen to this. Beshear has outspent Cameron $7.6 million to $780,000 through the month of mid-September. It's amazing how many elections Republicans probably could win if they weren't so just stupid. And their donors weren't just defeatists. So many of them are defeatists. Per ad tracking from Medium Buying, I like ad impact. Pro-Bashir ad spending exceeded its counterpart by $9 million through the same period. While a good portion of that money has been spent to highlight Daniel Cameron's position on abortion, he's still running as Democrat in an effectively Republican state. So he recently launched a TV spot featuring a Trump supporter endorsing him, reflecting the reality of what he faces in Kentucky. Do you think a Democrat in today's day would put himself up on TV being endorsed by somebody who supports Donald Trump if he thought he was ahead by the margin Emerson College has him ahead by? No way. Thank you, Roman. No. Even my 4-year-old son knows that. I really can't exaggerate how bad the horse race polling is in this state. In 2015, and maybe we'll go and get into that, Harry Enton addressed it on 538. And the problem just won't go away. I went through 40 polls released in the final months in every major statewide campaign from 2014 to 2022. We went over it ourselves, Laura and I, and absolutely confirmed it. The final release, in the rare case where a pollster had more than one that cycle, comparing the horse race poll to the actual result was depressing. So much so, I called up a good friend of the desk, Miles Coleman at the UVA Center for Politics, the tiny crystal balls, to commiserate about it. When I asked him to guess how many of the 40 polls underestimated the Republicans' final vote share, his response was a sober, nearly all of them. He was right. 39 out of 40 polls underestimated the Republican. The sole exception being Trafalgar, that found Bevin ahead, and Bevin, ultimately fell shy. But folks, Bevin was supposed to be blown out in 2019. Blown out. He barely lost. Worse than the consistent undercount was the scale of it. Enough were in the double digits to yield an average 8-point miss. So, Bashir's campaign right now has him up over Cameron by, I believe, 6 or 8, which is well within the average miss. The error was far smaller on the Democratic side, with 28 of those 40 overestimating. The balance spot on or slightly under, and averaging out to be about 1 point overshoot, roughly on par with what I just told you before. For whatever reason, the polls can tell you what the Democrat is going to end up with, but in a two-way race, you are still missing half the story. Before everyone gives up hope of anything happening, I'd like to highlight an interesting event in the world of polling. I'm going to show you this. Back in 2019, NBC News, Marist College, and Edison Research, thank God Edison was involved because the other two would probably look, never mind. I'm not going to say it. They tried an experiment in Kentucky to improve the response from the, quote, elusive, you ready? White voters without a college degree. By 2019, these people are still trying to figure this out. The results of their experiment are worth reading it. I'll have Laura throw it in the chats. But the bottom line is they found out what Rich has been telling you people all along, my good followers. If you wait for education, it doesn't matter. If you don't account for geography, specifically in those subgroups. If you did not use cell phones matched to billing addresses, you came closest to the actual vote. So you have to account for geography. And basically it says the sample that accounted for geography and did not use cell phone samples matched to the billing addresses came close to the actual vote. That's the second part of that sentence is the so-called media gold standard, folks. The trio vowed to use what they had learned from it in their subsequent state polling in 2020. Unfortunately, they haven't had the balls to release any yet. So Edison, NBC, and Marist, who, by the way, fought waiting for education after 2016, they still don't in many of their polls for NPR and else. It's incredible. So no wonder why they haven't released anything yet, because they just don't feel comfortable enough to do it. So you know what, guys? Anyone can do a study after the fact and say, this is what we all did wrong. You know what? I know the right way to do it now. Anyone can say it and pretend they did this study. Put your money where your mouth is. Put your credibility where your mouth is and do it. So What the research does find, though, is that our methodology would serve well in Kentucky. I mean, we're probably too late to the ball, folks, at this point. But if you read through it, which I will put in the chat now, Laura, you know what? I'm going to throw it in the private chat if you could, send it around. I can easily do it to locals right here, but everyone else, I can't. Locals, you get that? It's a document cloud, guys. If you miss it, I will have Laura send it again. I was able to get Rumble and Getter as well. So, all right. So there it is. Don't forget to like and share. Don't forget to like and share. I got all stoked last week. I'm like, where's all this traffic coming from? Rumble's like, blowing up, because people want to know. People want to know the truth. People want to know the legit truth. If we thought we had time to put up a public polling project for Kentucky, I'd do it. But I still would do it. If we were wrong, we were wrong. But I wouldn't care. But Georgia's next. And then, speaking of which, maybe later we'll get into the show me state, the great state of Missouri. And because if he's ready, Laura, I'm ready to rock if he is. I can't wait to have him on. We haven't had him back in a while, and there's been a lot that has gone on that he's been, he would be able to shine a lot of light on for us. So yeah, ready to go. Ladies and gentlemen, Will Scharf, Missouri Attorney General candidate. Will, thanks for coming back on, man. I really, really appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to getting into this with you.
No, always great to be with you. I'm a big fan of yours, so it's great to join, and thanks for having me.
Anytime, and thank you for that. I know that it's been a couple of days. I have been watching your Twitter feed too, so maybe we can get into the Trump indictment stuff, because you brought up something that I think a lot of people don't understand, because they're not lawyers, the motions that he filed last week, and I was reading your stuff about it. But before we do that, can we get you to respond to what happened in Israel, with Hamas? I mean, I'm watching your Twitter feed. It's tragic. It's a bad situation. It's like the final piece, Will, in Biden's puzzle to dismantle the piece.
Yeah, look, I think I'm Jewish. I have family in Israel. I have cousins who have been called up to reserve duty already. It's really, really bad over there. I mean, this is the obviously the worst terrorist attack in Israeli history, the biggest challenge to the Israeli state in probably 50 years. What's really important to note, though, in terms of domestic politics here in America, none of this stuff seemed to happen when Donald Trump was president.
Right.
I think our enemies abroad were justifiably scared of President Trump and the reaction that he would have to attacks like this. When ISIS was doing what Hamas is doing now, when they were kidnapping people and beheading them, I mean, Trump bombed them flat. We chased down Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi to the cave he was hiding in and killed him. When the Iranians poked their head up, and we have to be cognizant of the fact that it's really the Iranians who are behind Hamas, behind Hezbollah. When the Iranians poked their head up and started threatening American interests in the Middle East, Trump killed their top general, in view of the world, Qasem Soleimani, reestablished deterrence in a very meaningful way in the Middle East. The fact that the Biden administration's principal policy towards Iran seems to be shipping them pallets of cash and hoping for the best, I think really tells you where the American left is at today. And it really pisses me off to see people protesting for Hamas, protesting for terrorists on American streets. I've said it before, I think America's Jews need to wake up and understand that the left are not our friends, not our allies, that the real source of anti-Semitism in America today is really coming from the radical left. And I hope this is a wake-up call to a lot of American Jews about just what's at stake here.
Yeah, I don't know how we can talk about this issue seriously, Will, without discussing the fact that a good deal of the Democratic Party is sympathetic to Hamas, even pro-Hamas. We've had some unsavory characters walking through the halls of our own Congress in support of Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and something, by the way, Wall Street Journal tried to report on, and they got thumped when it happened. And that was, for people who don't know, when they were going to censure Ilhan Omar for anti-Semitic remarks, and Nancy Pelosi basically buckled on that. Now her pro-Israel lieutenants are all gone. They're all gone, Will. I mean, Engel is gone. Richard Engel was defeated. I mean, the left wing of this party has dismantled the pro-Israel wing, and they're now basically on their way to being dominated by people who are really for Hamas. That's just a fact. But what do you make of this? It drives me nuts when people say this money cannot be used for that. It's like they were like fell off a turnip truck, like they were born yesterday or something. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, look, every 10-year-old knows that if you buy him a toy for $5, that means there's another $5 that he can go spend on pizza or whatever. It's money is fungible. When you ship the Iranians $8 billion, they're going to use it for something. And knowing that regime, more often than not, they're going to be using it to support terrorism. I think the Biden people know that. I think they now know that they really messed up here. And I hope that there's a reckoning for it. But again, I mean, this is Iranian weapons, Iranian support, Iranian planning. This country is one of our great adversaries in the world. And I just, this isn't just about Israel. You have at least, I think the latest numbers are 8 dead Americans. There are Americans currently being held hostage in Gaza who are, subjected just, I'm sure, to the most unimaginable conditions there. If Donald Trump were president, I think, frankly, if any Republican were president, the response we would have seen would have been much more vigorous. But unfortunately, the Biden folks just seem scared of their own shadow and, frankly, scared of their own leftist base when it comes to confronting issues like this.
Trump got people back. He didn't pay $1. He didn't pay $1 for anybody. He got them back other ways. It just seems Democrats have a different philosophy. And even I was reading through old reports, the money that they had to do this, they were getting creamed with oil exports because Democrats gave out exemptions to sanctions, so they would allow our allies to still take money from or still take and purchase oil from Iran. And it just drove, this is something that the Trump administration had put a stop to. And when he did, and they're called SREs, by the way, for Iranian oil importers, for people who don't know what we're talking about, significant reduction exceptions. And during that, what had happened after the Trump administration did that is that they had reduced the money, the exports, which obviously is revenue for Iran. They had reduced their oil exports to an all-time low, and they just didn't have any extra money. They didn't have any extra money to fund this kind of stuff, at least not to the tune that they did during the Iraq War. Anyway, it just seems like they had to undo everything Trump did for the sake of, because it was from Trump. And, there was no logical reason to do it. They just did it because Trump did, and they wanted to be the anti-Trump. It's just terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I think more often than not, the left today is just driven by grievance politics, particularly against President Trump. I think that it colors everything that they do. I think the fact that, Trump had reestablished deterrence in the Middle East, the fact that our enemies were scared of us under him, this return to sort of be nice to everybody and hope for the best politics, it's really bad for America. It's really bad for the world. And I hope, the voters wake up and understand the dangerous world that Joe Biden has created when it comes time for the 2024 elections.
Abraham Accords. I mean, the exiting of Afghanistan, Eastern Europe, it's all coming apart. The international system is completely destabilizing. And with that, he's prosecuting his political opponent. Can you break down for people the motion that the Trump camp or Trump team filed and why? I mean, I read your thread. I would not do it justice. And why that you think it was significant, even if it doesn't fly now, maybe with appeals later on. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but it looked like to me there was a lot of agreement from the left and the right that was a smart move to make.
Yeah, even Ruth Marcus at the Washington Post said that this motion was a huge deal. So basically, last week, President Trump's lawyers in the D.C. case, which is one of Jack Smith's prosecutions relating to the events in the aftermath of the 2000 election. In the D.C. case, President Trump's lawyers filed a motion to dismiss on presidential immunity grounds. The argument is basically that presidents are absolutely immune from criminal prosecution for acts in office that are within the outer perimeter of their official responsibilities, unless they're first impeached and convicted by the House of Representatives and the Senate. This is an argument that I believe is a very strong argument. It has a lot of support both in the law and in historical practice. No president, of course, in American history until Donald Trump had been indicted for acts in office. Crucially, as you mentioned, in terms of time frame, typically when immunity arguments like this are raised, that can result in a stay of the case pending final resolution of that immunity argument. So even if the DC district were to reject that motion, from the start, that would appeal up to the DC circuit and potentially to the US Supreme Court as well. So even leftist commentators are noting that the result of this motion could well be pushing any potential trial in this case long past the 2024 elections. One other point that I would make is that the argument made in DC equally or perhaps even more strongly applies to the Georgia prosecution, which is also obviously about election issues. So this is a very important motion. It's a very important argument. I believe it's a very strong argument, and I think in terms of the overall time frame and just the litigation posture of all of these cases, this was a crucial move taken by President Trump's team.
Yeah, you answered the follow-up, which is, you have Dershowitz and so many others saying, of course, that's what they're doing. They're rushing it to get convictions before, and no one's going to deal with the substance, the merit, or, the credibility of these convictions until well after the election, push it well into the election. So I guess that's what makes this so big, is that, of course, it would not be resolved until after the 2024 election, which would change everything. It would turn everything on its head, Will, because you see all the polls coming out. Well, what if he's convicted? Which I think are nonsense. I think a lot of people are either lying to the pollster or lying to themselves. I actually agree with Obama's pollster on that. But that's, to me, what makes this so significant, just from a public polling point of view, that people are going to just have an A/B test. Is it Biden or is it Trump? And in the polling we've been doing, it's just the bottom line is that people think Trump was a better president, and that's mostly driven by their economic concerns. But now look at what's going on with the Middle East, Eastern Europe. It's all going to build up, but I wanted to ask you more about your race too. What do you think is the most important issue facing the Show Me State that the next attorney general is going to have to deal with?
I think people in Missouri are concerned with a lot of the same issues that people around the country are concerned with. I think, this sort of march of radical leftism through our institutions, whether it's schools, whether it's big business, obviously in government as well. People during COVID really woke up to the fact that the country had changed beneath their feet. And they're looking for conservative fighters who are willing to take on those fights, push back against radical leftism in our schools. We've had issues with obscene materials in our libraries here. Conservatives across this state are just really fired up. And I think the kind of go along to get along republicanism of yesteryear, people are just sick and tired of it. So we're running, a strong grassroots campaign. We've gotten a lot of support from around the state. I think conservatives are really awake to the fact that Missouri, despite being a deep red state, is getting blue results. Our schools keep getting bluer, our courts keep getting bluer. People are sick and tired of it, and that's the alternative that we're offering. Seems to be picking up a lot of support. So I'm excited. We're doing really well, and hopefully it continues.
Yeah, sometimes we focus on the national stuff, and we don't realize how important the really change is done from the ground up, and how much is being done through the schools and elsewhere. So I'm glad. I think you're right. I think people now, though, are waking up to that. It used to be we would focus incessantly on that national stuff. But where could people go to follow you, Will? I appreciate you coming out. Tell people where they can go and check you out and follow what you're doing. And if you have not read Will's stuff in the Federalist and elsewhere, you need to do it.
It's on all social media at Will Scharf, WILLSCHARF. That's, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Truth Social. And you can find us on the web at votescharf, VOTESCHARF.com. Thanks so much for having me, and thanks for everything that you do, Rich.
Anytime. Thank you, Will. All the best, and we'll see you soon. Come back and see you soon. Will Scharf, everybody. All right, listen, that motion, and yeah, apologize for the audio issue, but It still is what it is. The importance of that motion is it's crucial because it effectively takes this all off the table right now. If obviously it goes the way the former president wants it to go, nothing would be resolved until after the election. It has been the longstanding policy of the DOJ not to indict presidents while they're still sitting in office, especially for something that they have not been convicted of. The House can convict them, a million times, but if the Senate doesn't convict, or the House can impeach them a million times, but if the Senate doesn't convict them, then it almost means nothing. It's political. It has political impact, but it has historic impact, but it doesn't have the legal impact that some of these people have been making. And he brought up from the Washington Post. There's been a lot of others. This is a big deal. It is. And even if you don't like Donald Trump, you better hope this comes down the right way. Otherwise, we're going to have a future that's just going to be tit for tat with justice departments doing this back and forth to each other, the way that Democrats kind of started it with impeachment. Actually, I mean, you could go back to Clinton's if you were being fair. You could go back to Clinton's, but we didn't engage in the tit for tat impeachment of presidents like we appear to be starting to do now. And I'm not saying that, let me just make clear, I'm not saying there's not a legitimate reason to open up impeachment proceedings against Joe Biden. Obviously, he took bribes. I mean, you'd have to be an idiot not to know that. But there's been a lot of bad stuff that has gone on in between all of this time, and nobody has been held to account for it like this. There wasn't a Justice Department this is something that people don't seem to understand. When the framers were, when the impeachment clause was even being written and debated, there was no Justice Department that was the ultimate authority on whether a president should be eligible or not to remain in office. Which is why the 14th Amendment, keep Trump off the ballot thing is just ludicrous. Even after he's convicted and he's going through the appellate process, it runs counter to everything that we really should want. By the way, the number of people that are saying that they would write Donald Trump's name in this is, you know what? I'll show that to you. I don't want to show everybody everything, not yet, until it's done. But you'll see that the number of people who are telling us if Donald Trump is not the nominee, I'll write his name on the ballot, somewhere on the ballot, is just ridiculously high. I just didn't think this could happen in the modern era this much. But I tend, like I've said this, a lot to people, believe the voters when they tell you this. Let's go to Trump's responses. Hold on one second. And again, this isn't processed yet. So when it is, considering it's not going to be a huge impact from waiting, but a lightweight. This is what? Just yesterday's. But that's okay. Even just looking at yesterday's. Let me put it up for you guys. Laura, this is crazy. Yesterday's is higher than it was on Saturday. Okay. And then I do want to show you guys something, but wait. So this is yesterday. Here we go. And I'll make it big. So just to tell you and explain to people what we're doing here, this is a filter that says for people who chose Donald Trump. All right. Voting. I'm going to vote for Donald Trump in the primary, or if there's a caucus in my state. And this is the question for people who've never seen this before. The value ID equals 17 essentially just says, it's called piping. And it essentially just says, whatever their response was on a previous question, input that where we're putting this pipe. So it says, thinking about the general election, if, and in this case, it would say Donald Trump. Donald Trump does not receive the Republican nomination. Would you vote for the party's nominee? Consider voting for the Democratic nominee, the third party nominee, not vote at all, or write in this case, Donald Trump. And we asked that of everyone else, and we just don't get these numbers. So about 4% say they would not vote at all. 3% say they would vote for the Democratic nominee. 8% roughly say they would consider voting for the third party nominee. Less than half of Donald Trump's primary vote now, or people who support him to win the nomination, is even a better way to say that, because I haven't used a filter for the likely voter, for instance, right? So how likely are you? And then the screens through the primaries and stuff. That's not in here. So it's a larger population we're talking about. It could be, it's not just, 37.3% of the people who are going to vote. It could be a lot more than that. And it doesn't matter, because even if it was a little bit less than this, it's still crazy. You can see from the 490 interviews yesterday, 239 only said, I would vote for the Republican nominee, 49%. It's less than half. 183 of them said I would write in Donald Trump. Couple other things just before I move on. What are a couple other things that probably are worth noting? The Hispanic, the tightness of the Hispanic vote is real. That is definitely real. I don't know that it looks like it could be close, very, very close to a tie, if not just a slight Biden lead. That is real. And it's not just Biden falling to Trump's level, which is where we generally, Trump doing a little bit better. He's definitely improving. But you saw the Fox poll had Trump at like 45 with Hispanics. We're probably going to have him around like 43 for something like that. I would say ballpark 42, 43, with Biden falling a lot. And even if all of the other undecided say, yeah, just go for Biden, it's not going to be enough. It would look more like the Fox poll, like a Biden +7. So we are not one of those polls that have in the past overstated, and I can't stress this enough. We are not one of the polls that in the past have overstated Donald Trump's share of the vote with non-white voters. We did not do that. All right. Other people certainly did. We did not. All right. So, for instance, by the way, with Ron DeSantis, about 7 in 10, or about 2/3, basically, and probably when it's weighted, it'll go up. About 2/3 say, yeah, I'll vote for the Republican nominee. About 15% said they would vote for the third party nominee. This is important. It was higher, 85% of Ron DeSantis' supporters 2-3 months ago, even a little bit more, said they would vote for the Republican nominee. And you always had this chunk who said I'd go third party or I'd vote for Biden. 6% still say they would vote for Biden. That sounds like a lot, except for this fact. Ron DeSantis' share of the primary vote is now 1/3 of what it was when it was at its high, even less. Don't be surprised if Ron DeSantis has trouble breaking double digits in this poll. I don't know. I'm not going to say that for certain, but at the very least, he is a down, what was he, 12, 13 last month, Laura? Something like that. At the very least, he's down 2-3 points, if not in single digits. It's just he's flaked out. It's a wrap. It's a done deal. Same thing, Vivek. He is a lot like Trump. He has core support, but we do see Vivek stalling and fading. All right. There's just no more room for Vivek to grow if he's not going to break into traditionally Republican groups. He's doing good with moderates. He's doing well with moderates and suburbanites, but he is not doing well with the core of the Republican base. Nikki Haley's definitely risen, but Nikki Haley's support is part of the wine track. Trump is ahead with those who don't have a high school degree, those who have only a high school degree or GED equivalent, those who have some college or a 2-year associate degree. He's even ahead, and in a majority, a solid majority, with those who have a 4-year degree. And he's by the way, he's leading with the postgrads as well. But Nikki Haley, you can see, has taken the educated vote from Ron DeSantis. And that's why Ron has fallen so much, and he's left with really no base. He doesn't have a base. And never mind. I'm not even going to waste my time on that. But the fact is, if you're all these other candidates put together, and I'll do that right now, and I'll show you, for the most part, it doesn't matter. Consolidation will be fairly easy for Donald Trump. It's everybody else who would have a consolidation issue, because you have much larger vote share going to Donald Trump. So when 37% say I'm going to write his name in or I won't vote, 4 in 10, over 4 in 10 saying I won't vote or I'll write his name in, it's huge compared to 8% vote share for one of the smaller the smaller candidates, one of the lower tier candidates. Come on, Larry, for crying out loud. You just blew me up in the middle of the show. I saw you like, no more green screen, Larry. We're going to have the data map behind us, not on a green screen. It's going to be like an actual map. And the cool thing about it is it's built with acoustic hexagons. So we'll be serving multi-purposes, Larry. All right. That's funny though. Yeah, throw it. If you guys, I see one from Dread Robert. If you want to throw questions in there, Laura, I'd be happy to answer them. I did as best I can to answer Fridays, and we can talk about, more about foreign policy if you want. I just wanted to get them all, throw them in there. I'll answer as many as I can, but I do want to get to that study on Kentucky because that's our wheelhouse. That's what we're talking about here. Again, geography and education. And I got to tell you, nothing has changed since Friday when we discussed who RFK's vote is. God, do I want to show it? Yeah, I will. When we're done with this, I'll pop back to it and you'll see that RFK's vote is, what's the word, Laura? I mean, it's Southern. It's not Democratic support. And it looks like it is when you look at self-identification. It's working class. It's not educated. It's in the South. It's in the Midwest. So you have Trump crushing Joe Biden like 63-30 among those who don't have a college degree in the head-to-head. But then when RFK gets in there, it's like 52-32. He pulls from votes that Donald Trump needs. And there's a right way and a wrong way to attack him. And I'm not sure that the Trump campaign and others, not even Trump campaign, Democrats, I'm not sure they understand themselves because they could start to open up on him as well if they think that he's going to draw from Biden, but I don't think they will. I think they'll just wait to see what Trump does. And if Trump attacks RFK the wrong way, it could backfire, and it could backfire spectacularly. It is not a good idea. Not a good idea at all. All right. Yeah, so there we have it. Let's look at this survey, and then we'll come back and we'll look at RFK's vote. So we'll look at people who said in the 2 questions where they had a option to vote for RFK that they did across the board. All right. Why? Because that's all that really matters. West is not drawing any support. He really isn't. He gets like 2%. It's not enough to, it does. He takes from both Biden and Trump, by the way. Cornel West, he is taking more from Biden, but it's not enough to offset the damage that RFK is doing. Trump's lead is just going to have to be more durable, or durable enough to withstand how much he's going to lose from RFK. All right. And I know when you go through, that's why Echelon, for instance, I understand why they put up the headline they did. They just didn't look enough at the truly persuadable people that Trump will need. And then beyond looking at, well, I am a Democrat or I'm an independent who leans to the Democratic Party. Well, for instance, Pennsylvania. Trump can take low double digits of Democrats in Pennsylvania without RFK on the ballot. With RFK on the ballot, he takes like 7%. There are almost no independents in Pennsylvania. They are very, very small group of the electorate. Republicans are going to have to outvote Democrats, and they're going to have to win independents by a significant amount. And there's no doubt RFK threatens that. There's just no doubt. This is not debatable anymore. I'm sorry. There's just too many responses. Could it change? It could change. But as of this moment, that's the reality. All right. This is small. I know it's small. Let me zoom in because I want you to see it. All right. NBC News and the Marist poll, in collaboration with Edison Research, conducted several polling experiments in the months leading up to the 2019 Kentucky governor's contest. By the way, we will have the results. We will have an election coverage for the Kentucky governor's race. This one, 2023. The goal was to examine the perceived pitfalls of state polls from the 2016 presidential race and improve poll estimates and election analysis for 2020. I don't want to read, we don't have to read a whole bunch of other people, but let's go forward here. The project examines this relationship between education and candidate choice. It asks, what if there is more going on than just an undercount of voters without a college degree? Indeed, that is the right question to ask. That was always the right question to ask. And unfortunately, after 2016, you had people, and this is why I'm showing this, because there are always 2 years, one cycle or 2 cycles being 2 to 4, not presidential, but 2 to 4 years, 1 to 2 cycles behind. And in 2016, those of us who didn't screw it up were like, listen, it's education and region. Education and region, geography more specifically. They didn't listen. They thought they had it right. Well, if I just went back and reweighted my results, look, I'm pretty close. Okay, let's move forward. And pretty close wasn't good enough. So a few things we learned from the Kentucky project. The road to improved accuracy in statewide polling lies not just in a statistical adjustment of results, for instance, by education, but in the need to draw geographically representative samples in each state, keeping urban, suburban, exurban, and rural geography in mind. It's like amen, Laura, right? But this report was published a while ago. Why haven't they done this? Survey samples are not created equally, even in scientifically designed RDD as random digital dial live interviewer methods. Pollsters make many adjustments about how to draw a sample, such as including list sample, deciding the proportion of listed sample to use, matching numbers with other databases to improve contact rates, etc., which are still consistent with RDD. And that's true. But someone like me trying to tell this to APOR 7 years ago got laughed at. Well, you're totally throwing randomization out of the window. And my answer to them was, you already did. When you made the decision to call this many landlines, this many cell phones, and you pulled it from that list and you matched it to the, you're already doing it. You're already messing with randomization. True randomization would be RDD. Everyone has the same contact mode. Once upon a time, for instance, when everybody had a landline. That's true randomization. That is not possible in this world anymore. That's the dirty secret nobody wants told. It's not possible anymore. Are you using RDD or are you pulling out a voter file? Because now you just pulled, really, what is a targeted random sample? You decided to exclude people you know are not registered to vote. Well, of course, Rich, we're only looking for registered voters. Right. But RDD doesn't do that. Random digital dial relies on people self-reporting back in the day. So you already messed with it. Sampling techniques used to improve interviewer productivity have an impact on geography. You don't say. It appears the more sampling frames, lists from which telephone samples are drawn, are adjusted to increase productivity in the data collection process by using listed samples for landlines and billing address-based samples for cell phones. The less representative of urban and rural communities the sample becomes, even within non-metropolitan counties. That is so important. By the way, this is really not a secret, but one of the things that we used to get around this for a while because we did know this was an issue. And then, by the way, give me crap for working with left-wing vendors, but you know what? Their data is better. You're calling a bunch of junk, and they know that. So they're like, well, we're going to have to match to the billing address to make sure. There are other ways to go about this. You can find high, and I'm not going to give it away, Laura. I'm not going to give away all of it, but you can find high connect land and mobile numbers and verify them without billing address. And I know it's crazy, but it is true. They're saying don't do that. You're reducing the scope and you're making it less representative because you can't verify everybody, folks. There's also something now with online panels where people are like, well, I'm appending it to the voter file. Right. There are many ways to append to the voter file. What do you know about that panel response? The person you just collected that response from online. Do you only have their email? Because guess what? There aren't a lot of emails on the voter files compared to numbers. So when you're using such a strict append rule like that, you're going to reduce. It's like collecting 3,000 responses, and that's more representative. But because you were only able to append 1,000 because that's all you had for emails, it's the only thing you could match to the voter file, you're throwing out the other 2,000, and you still expect that 1,000 to be representative. That's not how this works. And they've been doing that for years. If you cannot find them with their email, do you have their number? Okay, now you're talking about a lot larger append. You're not going to be junking what are good responses. There are certain people who have less information on their voter file than others. Using billing address based sample for the cell phone frame resulted in demographic disparities. Respondents with higher education and income, even when taking into account geographic coverage. And what is that going to do, folks? You're a smart audience. And many of you have been with me for a very long time. If you do this and you're going to, and the result is going to be a higher education, higher income sample, which party is that going to skew to? And seriously, I'm going to stop and I'm going to wait for answers. Put them in your comment sections. You know it. You're a smart group. How bad is that poll going to understate Republican support? A lot. So part of it is it's harder to reach non-working, non-college whites. And part of it is your methodology itself is causing disparities with them. You know what, Rich? I will address that. I saw Laura's flash in that thing in there that a lot of you are asking that. I will absolutely do that. I'll talk about the speakership in a little bit. We got time. It's only 1:10. Well, let's get through this and I'll get to those questions. Those are all really good questions. So you already have the issue of participation being lower with working whites. Now you have added another layer. You've created what's called an artifact. Like I said, I've talked about this before. You've created an artifact. It's an artifact of the poll itself. These aren't real swings. You're just talking to more educated people this time because you decided to dedupe against the billing address, and that's not going to work for, a larger share of the population. So you're only going to get a sample that skews toward higher education and higher income. Waiting for and by the way, waiting will not save you. It won't save you. Waiting to compensate for inadequate sample size is like a guy with buying a big truck. At the end of the day, you still have a tiny one. You feel me, guys? Weighting by demographic characteristics, education, income will not always account for the diversity of attitudes that exist among individuals who, though similar demographically, have different views based on where they live geographically in a state. Has this not completely validated everything I have been saying to this industry for the last decade? I was mocked for this. Mocked. Laughed out of rooms. I kid you not. Accused of fabricating stuff because of the way we did this. Oh, you're just making up these rural people. Looking under the hood, the RDD only landline sample without any listed sample drawn by geography garnered more respondents in rural areas and less dense clusters in city centers. Again, looking under the hood, the RDD only landline sample without any listed sample drawn by geography garnered more respondents in rural areas and less dense clusters in city centers. In a 2016 context, this simple change in sampling found the so-called elusive shy Trump voter, white men without a college education. And it's more than that. It's more than white men without a college education. I got to bring this up. They're not there yet. It's non-whites who live in different areas, who hold very different views than, a female 45-year-old African-American woman, Laura, who lives in Micanopy, Florida, is going to have a lot different look and outlook on life and politics than a 45-year-old female black woman who lives in Leon County. And the only reason why I'm drawing Laura into this is she remembers. She remembers me literally going and sending people to recruit in tiny areas, which they said was not a valid way to conduct a tracking panel. But how else did you intend to reach them back then? Gallup did it. I didn't even make that up. I took it right from George Gallup. Decades and decades ago. I thought, you know what? The problem everyone's trying to deal with right now is that there are landlines. Now there are cell phones, fewer people on the landline. That reduces true randomization. Wait a minute. Once upon a time, there weren't an issue with landlines. Once upon a time, there wasn't an issue at all. Reader's Digest, Gallup, they didn't do it like that. How did they do it again? Oh, yeah. And by the way, what has Gallup done since then? They've quit the horse race. They've quit it. How do they recruit now? Post office. Postal. They mail. Look at how much of their sample is recruited through the mail. The weight by education, quote, fix. Sampling products to improve productivity for cell phone numbers, billing address matches, ironically have the best coverage of the state. That is, the most counties covered. But rather than improve representativeness, they result in samples with a greater proportion of respondents with higher education and income than the RDD-only cell phone and sampling frames. The weight by education fix post-2016, if applied in 2020, may result in pollsters, quote, just fighting the last war and missing the new realities of 2020. Did that or did that not happen? It did. 2020 was a bigger miss than 2016. Joe Biden won by fewer votes than Donald Trump won in 2016. There were massive polling misses. The New York Times missed every single battleground state, including Iowa and Florida. In Ohio, Florida, Biden +6. Iowa, Biden +1. Ohio, Biden +5. Fox News, they eventually went to Trump +3, but their second to last poll was Biden +5 in Ohio. Quinnipiac, Biden +4 in Ohio. Quinnipiac, Iowa +1. And I caution you on, looking at 2022 and saying, well, some of them did better. Maybe they'll do better in 2024. Presidential elections are totally different. Totally different. Population is a lot larger. Participation is a lot higher. Coffee break. Instead, more consistently representative samples, although certainly a burden in cost and time, may actually provide insight into what becomes the next change in election turnout. With all that has gone on in American politics since 2016, it may be partisan changes in turnout that are the answer to this year's election puzzle. Going forward, the NBC News Marist poll will incorporate geographical checks in drawing samples for representative statewide surveys. Limit the use. By the way, they did start to do more geographical checks. They did. They blew this election badly. How could they have blown the election badly when they were on the trail so closely? Because they didn't go all the way. They were accusing others of playing catch up when in fact that's exactly what they did. Limit the use of samples enhanced to improve productivity for both landline and cell phone sampling frames. I'll tell you what, after 2016, Aristotle and I, they had done, the very typical, here's what the online match to the landline, here's the online match to the cell phone, here's just online, not matched. Ironically, the overall panel of you just recruited without these additional sampling products to improve productivity. If you didn't do that and you just relied on the, you have to have some checks, but if you tried to do it the way the gold standard has been teaching people for years, you would, the difference would be like a Hillary +4 versus a Hillary plus, some of them were higher. Right. One of them was like Hillary +9 with the added checks, like the strictest checks. It was like Hillary Clinton +9 or something. It was crazy. In truth, overall, phone, email, I'm trying to walk a line here, but providing larger options or more options for these sampling checks, it was the most beneficial way to go. And someone may not have an email on their voter file. Someone may not have their billing address checked to their voter file. It may be wrong. Like, your cell phone bill with AT&T, folks, may have a different address on it than the address your ballot's going to go to. What else? I mean, it can go on and on and on. Avoid a one-size-fits-all polling solution based on weighting samples for what appears to be an undercounted geographic factor without further analysis. In 2016, it was education. In 2020, the quick fix may be party identification. Carefully track the geographical differences observed from sample to sample and from state to state. So it honestly was the beginning of a lot of wise advice. And yet, they didn't really take it for themselves. They did, but they did, they took the basics. They took the basics. They did not, and they were not strict enough with their own checks on geography. That's just true. All right, God, we're way over break time. I got to take a break. When we come back, I'll hit some of those, and then if we have time to go back to it, there was something else I wanted to show you and read, but if we don't have time, then I will just answer the questions. Don't forget, Wednesday, we'll start to go over the poll in a lot more detail. But now you can see, by the way, why sometimes it takes Rich a little longer to process data than these other polls. The Lord just said, because I actually do my job. You can't do this in an hour. With the stuff they're talking about too. And why I talk to you about red flags. Okay. It's 50% suburban. It's 30% rural or 30% urban. It's 20% rural. I guess that looks about right. Okay. Well, if it's like 18% Protestant or 28% conservative, you must have done something wrong. We have these things that said it's like a red flag. we missing something? And almost always it's geography. Not always, but a lot of times it's geography. Even when education looks good. Income's another great way. Income and education are great ways to throw flags. But sometimes even education looks right. But if you're getting your working class from disproportionately urban areas, for instance, then if your working class sample is disproportionately urban, you're going to understate the Republican share of the vote. That's going to happen. And by the way, this cuts both ways. If your college educated sample is like super rural somehow, which doesn't, I mean, it shouldn't happen like this. If you do, if you design your survey correctly. And I don't mean the questionnaire. I'm talking about your methodology. If you design it correctly, it shouldn't do that. But hell, things happen. It can. There's statistical noise from month to month, week to week. It happens. It cuts both ways. All right, let's take a real quick break. When we come back, I'm loving some of these questions. We're going to answer them. All right, look. Hamas, Israel. I just look at the world every day and I'm just waiting for that blackout. Everyone thinks it's a joke right now. Extremists can target the power grid. There was from what I understand, and I'll leave this to others to get into the core of the story. But that if you think we're just sitting safe over here from acts of terror, you're crazy. Extremists are targeting the power grid. Authorities they know about it. They are concerned about it. If just 9 key substations were to go down, whether it be from that or weather, knock out power across the country for up to 18 months. Most of our lives would be frozen in time the moment the power went out. Even if you have a propane or natural gas generator, this is why you need a solar generator. With the Patriot Power 2000X, you can have a portable but powerful solar generator that's strong enough to power your phones, medical devices for you and your loved ones, maybe you or your loved ones, even appliances like your refrigerator. You can get one right now. Go to 4patriots.com, use the promo code TPP10. And by the way, when you do, you will see that there will be other deals that pop up for the Patriot Power generator. Guess what's great? You could just stack it. Like you can stack it to make it stronger, by the way, which you can do now with the 2000X. You can get other components, stack them, and make it stronger so you can power more devices, more appliances. That's awesome. You can also stack your savings. So grab their deals. They have bundles right now that are great, but they also have all other deals, which you can use the promo code TPP10 to stack and save yourself even more money. The code's good for your first purchase only, and of course, it is good for anything you want on 4Patriots. But I would suggest you use it to save yourself a significant amount of money. Again, one more time, 4patriots.com. Use the promo code TPP10 at checkout. All right. Thank you for that, Laura. All right. I almost want to go backward on this, Laura. I almost want to go backward on it. Let me see where I'm going to go here. There's one about that. I'm gonna find something to pull up so you guys can see the. You know what I've noticed? I don't know if you guys know this or not, but media and the left are trying to ostracize RCP. I guess is the best way for me to put it. All right, they're trying to ostracize them. And 2018 was all over the place. I'll show you in a second. But when we search for them now, we notice they're not, like, if you search for archives of polls, they're not popping up the way they used to. And I can't imagine why. Mason-Dixon had Bashir up by 8. Mason-Dixon had a tie then later after that. At the end, some of the other ones were ridiculous for Andy Bashir, but the polling was scant because people were getting afraid to poll Kentucky. Bashir won by 0.4%. That's it. And this is the cycle that you can find some of the polls that overstate, like Trafalgar. This is the cycle where one poll overstated Republican support. And I'm getting to it because I do see one of your questions about the Kentucky race. Let me just show you this. All right. So scant polling, right? But you could see 2 Bashirs there, one from Graffis and then one from Trafalgar, or one Bevins, excuse me. And then Bashir had an 8-point lead earlier, much earlier. But polling at this point was scant because people were afraid. And the Courier-Journal had gotten out by this time, even though they went through all of that. I just read to you all of this, like, let's go search for ourselves nonsense. And they don't even apply it. Have you seen yet a poll from NBC or Maris or anyone in Kentucky? Nope. Has the Courier-Journal attempted to apply any of that? Nope. So we're left again with very scant polling in the state. But if you notice, even the Gravis still understated Bevin's support. Not by a lot, but it understated it by about a point. The Mason-Dixon poll that had Bashir up understated his support by about 9 points, almost 9 points. Only Trafalgar overstated it by 3.2. And they understated Bashir by 2.2. But everybody else, you can generally see what the Democrat is going to get. If you average, if you deal with the aggregate, you're generally going to see what they're going to get. Republicans are the problem here. So if you go now to the Kentucky, let's see if we can bring up Kentucky, for instance. Well, let's go to latest polls, because if we go to latest polls, we'll see the Kentucky from Emerson. All right, where's the Bashir plus a million? There's like a Bashir plus a ridiculous. Where are we? It just came out the other day. Can't be that far. That's Kentucky. All right, so I don't know why it's not up here yet. Maybe they just don't have enough to even put up a thing. But we can go to Emerson and we can look at it. Come on, Emerson. Today. 16-point lead. 16. We've been here before. So if past was prologue, all right, Andy Bashir would still be sitting kind of pretty in a good shape because he's at 49%, right below 50. Although, again, we have seen this, but it's still a little bit higher than we have seen in the past. What did we see before? We did see some 48s, and he did end up winning, right? Daniel Cameron, however, 13 points. It's possible we could see a 3-point win for Bashir, and that would be within the realm of their normal misses. So again, a very close race with the polls show to be extremely, extremely a blowout, not close. Right? So it's not, honestly, folks, if every single undecided were to go, it would be a 49-46 poll. I mean, so you're still seeing that Cameron is down, but this one is clearly, between the two campaigns, this one is clearly an outlier. And what did Cameron outperform their primary poll by? I mean, it was ridiculous. Double digits. And overall, the margin was twice as large as they expected him to win by. All right, so let's see. Yeah, I still don't know that, guys. I still don't know if I don't think they're doing it. No, I really don't think they're doing it on purpose. Kentucky VFR 1200F said Kentucky House seats 80R 20D, Senate 31R 7D, pure majorities, and Kentucky party still on the Eric system. This is one thing I know a lot of people, it's been very controversial, the Eric system. I don't think you need the Eric system to keep up with change of address flags, which is their number one argument for why states participate in Eric. And for those who don't know what Eric is, it is like a co-op of different states that share voter data with each other to be able. The goal is to say, well, if Laura moves from Florida to North Carolina, if Florida and North Carolina both participate in Eric, they're going to see that Laura has moved. Then let me ask you a question. If Eric works so well, how come the Eric participating states still have so many change of address flags on them? There's almost no difference between states that participate with Eric and states that don't. There's almost no difference in the percent of the voter file that is dirty from change of address flags. It also takes exactly 3 seconds for me to pull up a state and find the change of address flags. It would call, well, let's call it 10 minutes because I got to wait for the database to do its thing. Do you know how much Eric costs to maintain? It's a fortune. When any Secretary of State from any state could call up the People's Pundit and I'll do it in 10 minutes for like the cheap. It's not that big of a deal. And then also, it's all predicated on the idea that states are going to comply with the National Voter Registration Act of 1993, and they don't anyway. By that, I mean maintain proper, clean, accurate voter rolls. They don't. That's not all that's in the Act of 93, but that was a big part of it. I just don't see the point of Eric. Especially since it's very clear that one side is involved in it, another side really isn't, even though there are dumb Republican governors who praise it up and down. The fact is, who controls Eric matters. And rhinos, or I would say Republicans who sing its praise are rhinos, and Democrats largely are in control of it, and it's funded with money from left-wing groups. Or, it was pushed by and now benefits left-wingers. If you're going to give them access to that kind of information, it better be something that benefits all equally, and it doesn't. It doesn't. Gives them more, frankly, it gives them more control and insight. And again, I just don't see the point. I don't. We run these things every day. There have been states that we have gone literally on this show and opened up the voter file, run the damn change of address flag. I've shown them to you how many there are on these states. Southern red states, Western purple states. It's just no place. It doesn't seem to work. All right, so sorry if I may have missed it already. Ooh, that's let me bring up. I know what he's doing. I know what he's going to ask. Let me bring up. I have a tracker here. Doesn't look like. Well, no, we've gotten 3 more since the last time I went over it. So, are you going to get Kevin McCarthy? You have people like Tom McClintock. Boy, that guy turned out to be such a disappointment. I'm sorry. You have people like Tom McClintock who have continued to call for Speaker McCarthy, which is the question. Kevin McCarthy now. They have continually called for Kevin McCarthy to be in. Wait, let me just make sure I added all the other ones. Hang on one second, guys. To return to his job and become speaker again. And then you have people, I'm not sure where Duarte stands on it. I know he owes everything to Kevin, so I wouldn't be sure if he jumped on that bandwagon. But that ship has sailed. I mean, if Kevin didn't work the first time, I don't know why anyone would view this situation any differently. I have noticed what it looks like Austin Scott, Debbie Lesko. All right. But between Jim Jordan and Steve Scalise, who are the 2 candidates, Jordan clearly has not only more. It's not only that he has more. What Jordan has is a broader spectrum of support. And now, of course, he has Donald Trump. And I'm going to show you guys in a second. It looks like the California caucus did get Young Kim. Yep, Young Kim's for Scalise. So the California caucus, which former speaker McCarthy would need, and it's such a great question. Are we just going to end up where we start? He would need, at the very least, his own. Let me stop sharing this and show you what I'm looking at right now. We're going to put up a House Speaker tracker, and I just haven't gotten a chance to put up all of the congressional districts, but I started to put this together to show people. And MTG is going to get off of. This was Trump, and I took it away. Byron Donalds went for Jim Jordan. So Byron Donalds is here now. I mean, he went a while ago. So when Byron went and signed on with Jim Jordan, it made it much more likely that Trump coalition is just going to be told tomorrow when the former president goes and meets with them to get behind Jim Jordan. He endorsed Jim Jordan. And tomorrow when he goes and speaks with him, they're going to, he's got weight, guys. He's got a lot of influence with these people. And I think there are a lot of people in the media who discount how much influence how much influence Donald Trump has with people, by the way, who otherwise would support Jim Jordan. And so MTG, by the end of the day, I imagine Tuesday will eventually fall behind Jim Jordan. She does owe a lot to Speaker McCarthy, but he's gone now. He's bruised. He's like an injured bird. I don't know, Here's Scalise's. Scalise has, Steve Womack, Tom Emmer, which I got to tell you, guys, I don't like it. But all in all, Steve Scalise has 32 endorsements and Jim Jordan has 40. All right. We're going to wind up putting up a map with the congressional districts so you can see it, which will be cool. But Jim Jordan has more across the board. And so he's got Massey, for instance. He even has Darrell Issa. Yet again, that's a blow to the concept, to the attempt to bring back Kevin McCarthy, Rich. It would be tough. And where's Rich on Locals? Or is he on Locals? Or yeah, it looks like Locals. It would be tough for him if he doesn't have universal support of his own delegation. I said congregation before. If he doesn't have his own delegation in California, I just don't see how he pulls it off, man. I really don't. And you can see right there, there's California is all over the place. Young Kim is with Steve Scalise. There is an argument to be made that this entire column could go back to Kevin McCarthy. You see Tom Emmer here. This is a problem, though. No one's ever, and Tom Emmer obviously knew he wasn't going to get the votes. There's bitterness from a host of things. One, McCarthy, even though you're not told about it by the media, and everyone loved to blame Trump because it was just so much easier, Tom Emmer and Kevin McCarthy screwed over a lot of people. They sabotaged a lot of candidates that otherwise could have won. There are many people on these, on these tables that endorsed those candidates. Jim Jordan, Troy Nehls, Donald Trump, Lauren Boebert, Byron Donalds, Harriet Hageman. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. Russell Fry is one of those that got in. Paul Gosar, Corey Mills. You just go and go on and on. And there's going to be this bitterness. They put themselves out there. They backed somebody and, in an effort to control the conference, they sabotaged them thinking they would get more moderate seats, and it didn't work out. Yeah, so I just don't see it, But we'll see what Trump does tomorrow. I imagine he's going to go and he's going to urge everybody to get behind Jim Jordan and get back to work. Life of Brian. RFK will bait Trump on the jab, and Trump will take it because he can't help himself. Yeah, there is a right way and there is a wrong way to attack RFK. The vaccine is the wrong way. The wrong way. RFK isn't taking any educated Democrats away from Joe Biden who don't like the jab. That's not who he's taking away. He's taking away the I hate government, I hate the system, I hate the two-party system, I hate Wall Street, I hate K Street, I hate Silicon Valley, I hate the New World Order, I hate the WTO, I hate the OECD, I hate Davos, I hate Big Pharma, I hate Frank Luntz. You attack him on the jab, you will hurt yourself, Mr. President. I'm telling you right now. They're gearing up to attack him on several things, obviously. I don't know what they are. I'm not privy to it. But there is a right way and a wrong way to attack RFK, and it will be very, very damaging to Donald Trump if he attacks him the wrong way. Perhaps one he cannot recover from. I'm telling you. There are two outsiders. Anytime there are two anti-establishment candidates in a race with an establishment candidate in the race, they split the damn anti-establishment vote and the establishment candidate wins. Duarte is with Kevin. Okay, so enough to put him on the list? Is that looks like there is an actual statement. Duarte was on Fox saying Dems need to help crossover and put McCarthy back in. Can't wait for that rat to lose his seat. Really hope David primaries him. I imagine David will make his decision very, very soon. You know, it's funny because everyone's like, he's more conservative than everyone thinks he is. Don't worry, we're running an intervention. I've heard that from multiple people now. Well, your intervention doesn't seem to be working. The guy is a total. He's not his dad. Let me just put it that way. For those who don't know that situation, there's a lot of love for him, his old man. His old man was the kind of Republican donor who, even when it wasn't cool to donate to Republicans in that area, he did. There was the culture of, let's just get behind the Democrat if the Democrat can win because he appeals to certain communities and, you know, it's ag over there and things are changing. It's not like that anymore. But they were running on a lot of love for his father because his father was the kind of guy who was like, screw you, I'm a Republican. Even if I lose, I'm supporting the Republican. I'm conservative. Old man MAGAs can be, you know? Not his son. Obviously, he's not the same guy. So let's go ahead and just throw John's name on there. He really said that. Confirm that for me, Laura. You know, I bet it's true. I bet it's true. So stupid. Anyway, yeah, very, very, very important to realize that there is a right way and a wrong way to attack RFK. And if Trump attacks him the wrong way, he's going to damage himself badly. The vaccine would be one of those ways. There may be an appropriate time to do that in an appropriate way, but right now is not the appropriate time. The way to attack RFK is to make him a Democrat. I'm just going to say this. RFK's mission is to go after the DNC. That will appeal to the people who feel disenfranchised by the DNC who otherwise would vote for Donald Trump. Also, it will appeal to people, and I'm talking about like orphan Democrats, very small share, very small group of people, but they're there and elections are won on the margins. Then there's the other group of people, which are independents, those who, quote, share a little in common with either. And I could probably pull that up and show you right now. I have RFK support out there. That is the voter that Donald Trump would get, and he needs every single one of them. All right. He needs every single one of them. RFK support, the largest share income-wise of RFK support is the 50 to 100,000. Still, after all these interviews, since we were talking on Friday, his largest share outside, you know, and education is some college and associate degree. Second, high school GED equivalent. Only 19% in the raw, it hasn't been weighted yet, but only 19% of RFK support has a bachelor's degree. Only 12% has a post-grad. That's less than the national average. Only 1.3% are trade or pre-secondary. It's the high school and the some college, which are huge chunk groups right now. You attack on the vaccine, for instance, you think you're going to win any of those bachelor degree people? You're not. All right. Union household, only 11% are yes. Trying to look though at that we were specifically talking about this as race. By the way, 75% of RFK support is white. 75%. Only 11% is black, African American. That's less than Trump. Hispanic, 9%. That's it. That's all. Male, female. What else we got? Share little in common with either is his number one. So when we ask independents and those who identify as third party or something else, would you say your views are more closely aligned to the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, equally close to the Republican Party and Democratic Party, or share little in common with either? Little in common with either is his largest. 31% of his vote says that. That is not good for Trump. Trump is the candidate who hates both parties. All right. Equally aligned is second biggest. The Democratic Party is the third biggest, but it's Republicans right behind. It's 2 points away. 2 points. That's it. There are more conservatives. When you're looking up those who said they would vote for him in the hypotheticals across, every single one, 66.3% of his vote is moderate. 17.5 is conservative, so 18, and only 16.3 is liberal. So his vote is actually more conservative than it is liberal. This is bad news, folks. Bad news if you're Donald Trump. And if you go after him on certain issues, then you're going to hurt yourself with those people. All right. Let me put it up there so you can see. That's liberal. Moderate is first. Conservative second. Liberal is third. You can see. Yes, they're very close. Moderate is by far the largest slice of that, but conservative is the second largest, followed by liberal. All right. And it'll trick you if you just look at this, for instance. Well, it's so much more Democratic. Right. But Trump takes a certain Democrat more than Biden takes Republicans. You need that crossover Democrat. And in places like Pennsylvania and Michigan, that's going to be huge. Macomb County, Michigan. Anything north of Warren is going to be a problem. Not to get angry, but I'm getting frustrated. Does Biden have an absolute floor of support? How low can he go? He does, and I'm thinking it's about 36%. We'll see if it goes any lower, but you have to remember Democrats are a hive mind. Same reason why RFK's strategy to attack the DNC is going to hurt Donald Trump, not the DNC, not Joe Biden. They are a hive mind, and they will surround the hive and protect it. What a great question, though, Jonathan. And if, obviously, I'm going to assume you're a Trump supporter, right? Based on things I've seen you write. I wish I had a better answer for you, Is there an I won't vote undecided option in this polling with RFK in the general? How much does that shrink with RFK? How much does that shrink with RFK on the ballot? There isn't that choice during the hypotheticals. They're already weeded out. All right. So everyone you see right there includes people that we know will vote. They're weeded out before. We could include them, but I'm specifically filtering them out. It's not shrinking that much. I mean, why? Because Trump voters and RFK voters have a lot more people who say they're unlikely voters, right? But if they're both on the ballot, it doesn't they don't fall off that much because these people say they do intend to vote for one of them. So turnout would be, at this point, turnout could be huge. Not could be. It is more likely at this point that turnout is huge. Let me just say this too with a caveat. RFK will face the same challenges that Cornel West is going to face now. Cornel West made a very risky decision by jumping off the Green Party wagon. I understand that he sees how the independent label is polling, and also he didn't want to be associated with Greens because you can turn people off with the Greens, and that's fine. Even though he says he appreciates them, we all know what he's thinking. He's thinking Greens are thought of as green commies, and they're really reds, not greens. And there's just going to be a certain number of people who never vote for them, and that's a very high number. He's right. But the Green Party has something he doesn't have, and even RFK doesn't have. Experience getting on the ballot and an organization. And it's going to be difficult for RFK and West to get on every single ballot. He should have stuck. Honestly, if West wanted to make an impression, he should have stuck on the Green Party ballot. But I'll tell you right now, I mean, people I've had conversations with since he did this, we're all pretty much in agreement. We're going to find out later that Cornel West has a summer vacation house somewhere now that he didn't have before. Sorry. Nobody would make that decision. It doesn't make any logical sense. You went from being someone who really wanted to be taken seriously to someone who will have an incredibly difficult time getting on states' ballots. It's going to be extremely difficult for him now. He knows it. So what did he get for this? Summer house? Somebody get something cushy in his family? I don't know. But it just doesn't. It's the only way it makes sense to not only me, but a lot of other smart people. If the RFK vote is coming from the South, and if the Georgia poll gets funded, would it make sense to add questions about his support for abortion, gun control, climate change. We're not a campaign. I'm not going to test people's, that's the work of that's the work a campaign should do. It makes sense for us to put him on the ballot and see what he's drawing. But it's up to the candidates and the campaigns to let voters know where other candidates stand on issues. I just don't know how I would ask that in a way that doesn't look incredibly biased, like I'm trying to pull for the Trump campaign. Yeah, that's what rightfully somebody would ask. Unless we just asked about his positions, like, do you agree the NRA is a terrorist organization? End of story. We know he said that. Do you agree with abortion after 40 weeks? Yeah, but then we would have to be fair and ask about other positions for other candidates. Because I'm looking at the finality of that question, Laura, and it says it would let you know if his support evaporates if this information reaches more voters. I'm sure that Trump has enough money to pay Tony Fabrizio to do that. That's his pollster, and Tony should be the one to do it, not me. I'm just being honest and ethical here. Don't women make up the majority of college students now? Yep, absolutely. Which, again, what a great point, Road Trip, because think now about what that would do to your non-educated, non-college educated sample if you are geographically not making sure that it's representative. And Quinnipiac had a problem with this for a long time. It's like, oh, I'm a college student and I'm 20-something% of the non-college vote. Like, what? No, they're not. Laura, you know what I want for my birthday tonight? I want that Japanese place. I'm sorry, I just wanted to talk to you about this before, because I know, like, after the show, folks, we wind up going our separate ways, and I'm not going to see her, so I'm saying it now. I want that ramen.
I love you, baby. You got it. Anything
I want the
for you.
ramen, Laura, and a bottle of sake.
No problem, boo boo.
All
I
right.
got you.
Nice. Hi, Roro.
Say hi, Daddy.
He's upset. Hi, Roro.
Say hi, Daddy.
Hi, Roro. Did you have fun pumpkin picking yesterday?
Yes. How
You want to go
Uh-oh.
back? Yeah.
We'll do the stickers later for the windows. Don't forget the stickers, Mommy, for the windows. Roro wants to do the stickers on the windows. We have the same stickers for Halloween that we've had for years. My eldest son was putting those stickers on windows because they're just so damn cool. They're the coolest pumpkin stickers ever. And they're like jelly, those kind of stickers. They're not really stickers. They're like gelatin you stick on the windows, which of course you have to wash off after, but they're awesome. Laura likes the cute Halloween. I like the terrifying Halloween, but we can find somewhere in the middle where we at least have, don't go to the porch, right? I'll get my scary stuff later listen, free candy. The hell are you talking about? Trick or treat. You're not getting the treat unless you have a high probability of getting tricked. You earn the candy after you go through the gauntlet that is the People's Pundit's front porch. I have things that jump out at you. Things that blow smoke and fire. Speaking of which, Laura, almost time to dig the rat up.
I
Three-headed
like
rat.
the cute decorations.
Thing's awesome. What?
I like the cute decorations, not the crazy.
And you know what's funny is that both of us have our favorite decoration is not like, it's not cute, Laura. It's in the middle. There's cute, and then there's spooky, and then there's scary. He's like on the line of spooky, and he's not cute Halloween. Right? I don't think so. But he's a pumpkin with a witch hat on, and he's the coolest thing in the world.
He's totally adorable. He has a happy, goofy face.
I think he's slightly spooky.
There's no spooky about it, y'all.
You just
I'll
think
take a
he's
picture
adorable.
and post it.
That's it. Bring it over here.
We're
Bring
gonna
it
vote.
in.
We're gonna do a poll on this.
We are, but you know what? No, we're not, because the last poll you won for Christmas. Does that elf look like Anthony Fauci? Spooky elf or magical elf? That's what we had or something. We were like, poll, People's Pundit, family poll. I had these elves for people on locals. You know what I'm talking about if you've been with me this long. I got them from Michael's or Hobby Lobby. And I just thought they were the most magical little SOBs in the world.
No, those were evil elves.
And
They
they,
were Fauci elves.
I'm going to lose this poll. Folks,
Cute
cute or slightly spooky?
There's no slight.
Well, I'm going to lose. Anyway, while we're waiting for the votes, let me tell the story of the last time I lost. I didn't see it, man. And then I got crushed. It wasn't even close. I lost 90 something. I said, how did I miss this that bad? Laura crushed me. Spooky elf crushed magical elf like 93-7. I got demolished. And all through the comments, people were like, dude, that's Anthony Fauci, bro. You don't see it? It's Fauci, the demon. And I'm like, oh, that is Anthony Fauci. It did look like Anthony Fauci. Oh my God. We should go back and look at that poll and see how bad it was. A locals poll. I got destroyed. I mean, killed. Elves. Let's see if I can search elves. There it is. Undecided. I got 12%, Laura. I got 12%. Let's show them the magical elf while we wait for. You think it's kind of cute? I think, man, I was hoping. Damn, I'm getting clobbered again. I'm getting. You know
Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
Maybe it's because I have it with other spooky stuff. I don't know. Yeah, you know what? Kiss it. Right? Now, because he is cute, but he's cute in a spooky way. He's like spookly the square pumpkin.
An 8-year-old said it's cute.
Spookly is cute. Anyway, sorry, but cute. There's the Tony Fauci Christmas elves.
Y'all, tell me they don't look like evil Faucis.
I couldn't believe you. I'm like, how do you not see this as like the magical North Pole elf? And everybody was just like, no, Rich, those are scary, creepy ass little elves. Take them out of your house. Bro, that's Fauci. Exactly. And the minute I said, Hobby Lobby, people were like, I saw them, bro. That's Anthony Fauci in an elf suit to try to make you be pro-COVID. And I'm like, you're right. You're all right. You're absolutely all right. You got the elves, David. I thought they were beautiful. And then somehow, David, the elf just happened to fall and chip a piece of his nose off.
Oops.
Oh, I knew it. This year, I will find the cute elves. Yeah, put a mask on it and you'll all see it. We should totally. Yo, we're doing that, Laura. That is Fauci spawn. Kimmy's right. It's a spawn of Fauci. And Kimmy, they did that intentionally. Don't tell me that they did not intentionally make that elf look like Anthony Fauci. They wanted everyone to love Anthony Fauci like you love Christmas. Think about it. That's how devoted these people are. I'm never going to believe. I don't care if you find me the manufacturer tomorrow and they say it's not based on Anthony Fauci. I'm going to call bullshit. Bullshit. That is Anthony Fauci on purpose. Anyway, yeah, I lost that vote. Actually, technically, Laura, it was like 80-12 because there was an undecided who didn't want to hurt my feelings.
Hot cake, absolutely 100%.
Look at them. They're sitting next to my UF ball, waving. One's going, hee. And the other one's like, hello. They're supposed to be cute.
Yeah, guys, ready? Actually, those elves make a better Halloween spooky decoration than my cute little pumpkin when he's cute
Wait
in
a
the hat.
minute. Let's take this. Forget it. I give up. I give up. Just for that, Laura, both pumpkins are getting carved spooky this year.
No.
One's we usually do one spooky and then one silly. I'll compromise with you. We'll do original Halloween 1979. Isn't this the original 79, right? I believe so. 1979 original Jack O'Lantern, and then the other one scary. Yeah.
The answer is no for 500. One goofy, one scary. That's it. Get over it.
We were the other night watching Halloween Ends, which is supposed to be the ending of Halloween, and it's not. They're making another one. Anyway, we get ready to leave because we had to go pick up our son, and one of our neighbors is flat out in a full dressed Michael Myers, the blue overalls, the new mask, which looks really dope, and had the box on, music box on him that's like din 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 din. What was he doing? He was going around to all the people who have cameras on their doorbells and going. I think it's hilarious, but you know what? Some Karen's going to call the cops. I had one Karen call the cops on the poor inspector guy from the county. Anyway, that's the world we live in. Continue with the costumes. Don't let them ruin our fun. Get your GMRS licenses and learn how to use two-way radios and repeaters. Comms are key. Pick up some Baofangs. You know what, Jonathan? I am that was on the back burner. I meant to reach out to a company that I know that does that to see if they wanted to advertise on Inside the Numbers, because I think I don't advertise anything that I don't personally use and that I don't think is valuable. And they have amazing stuff and amazing deals right now. I absolutely think too. But that's for like satellite phones. But you are right that people should, if they can get a ham radio, stuff like that, that they're allowed to use. You have to be allowed to. And, you know, it's a good point. Get your GMRS licenses. And by the way, we did noon today because until we figure out, I thought we would move to 2 on Mondays because what are the odds is at 2 o'clock, and we were confusing people. But listen, until what are the odds is, I know, back on schedule. I'm reclaiming my noon time, and I'm sorry to go back and forth like this. I didn't expect to have to do this, but I'm not ceding the noon rush hour to Clay Travis, dude. I'm not doing it. So if Robert's busy with stuff, and what are the odds it's not going to run at least once a month, we're going back to the noon time. I like my noon hour. Listen, I don't think that all pollsters are messing up on purpose, that they're trying to frame the election. Do others do that? Absolutely they do. But there's no doubt that for a while, man, they were just lost in the sauce. I'm telling you. And by constantly disputing methodology of other pollsters and how it leads to incorrect results, are you not missing the true purpose of their polls? No, because I can see the flaw in their polls. Some of them are absolutely fudging results. All right. There's no doubt. And I'll call it out when I see it. Like Fox News in 2020. We were in the field in Ohio the same time, and they came out with a Biden +3 or 5 or something. It was outrageous. And I showed people live on the show, this is impossible. You couldn't screw your methodology up bad enough. Every single mode of collection was Trump +6 to Trump +10. It was crazy. Even the most favorable of, like, we were talking about how you can design those sampling checks, how you can design them and they can get more educated. Trump was even winning with that, So that was, for me, that was a fudge. Quinnipiac, I called him out on it when I thought they were doing it. One day later with a different data set is BS. That's the same data set. You reweighted it. You're full of crap. So yeah, I'll call it when I see it, but I do think that they are absolutely, totally lost in the sauce. What are the odds of the Democrat establishment padding ballots regardless of Trump's margin? You can't do that, though. This is what I'm trying to explain to people, and this is why I'm not confident in the Republican ability to have a good ground game, get out the vote, whatever you want to call it, ballot chasing, whatever you want to call it. They don't seem to understand just chasing ballots isn't good enough. You have to, well, I don't want to, people have been stealing a lot of my stuff. So I'm reluctant to talk online about some of this stuff because then they run to people and pretend that they know what I'm talking about. And I'm getting really upset that a lot of people are being swindled out of a lot of money. And it's starting to bother me. I've heard people played clips of my videos to people raising money, which is like something I did, myself. It honestly, so I'm very reluctant to say anything live publicly on air about how they would need to do this. They are very, very, very infantile, I guess is what I'm trying to say. They are in the infant stage of understanding what Democrats do. And you can't just fill in as much as you want and rob as much as you want. You can do it. There's a way. You're never going to stop them. And now that YouTube, we can say what we want. You're never going to stop the cheat, but you can beat the cheat. You can. And I'm not going to talk like Democrats don't cheat. They cheat. They've always cheated. It's only a matter of how much do they. Are the campaign internal polls in Kentucky more accurate? They're closer, Dread Robert. They're closer. They weren't as accurate. Well, no, that's not true. Excuse me. In the race we were just talking about and discussing, where Survey USA really blew it badly and they were fired by the Courier Journal, the internal polls were closer. They were. Survey USA showed a blowout for the Democrat, basically a comfortable win. That did not happen. The internal polls showed Bevin was stronger, but Bevin was up maybe a point or two. It was really, what you would dismiss as a favorable internal poll. Like, oh, it's just Bevin's poll, so of course he's up by 1. But Conley's polling was also much closer. So it's a good question. But I think Conley was only up by 6 or something in his internal. Clifford Bates, why have and not sure the states for complying with... Why have they not censured? I guess you mean censured for the state. They don't, Cliff. They don't. They don't do anything. Republicans do nothing. It's a great question. They're supposed to comply. They don't. I mean, anytime any Republican ever brings it up, by the way, it's always, this is voter suppression. And then they cave like a bunch of Marys and they give it up. I wish I had a better answer on you. Believe me, if the roles were reversed, Democrats make damn sure you're complying with that act. I won't vote undecided option in this polling with RFK and the... Is there an... Oh, I already went over this. That's right. Democratic Party wants to do away with farming in America. They do. And you hear about this 1/3 of 1/3 agenda thing? The federal government's going to own... If you're in Texas and you're a rancher or a farmer, you're in deep trouble. And by the way, what do you think that's going to do to our beef production in this country? But of course, they hate meat anyway. Look, they're trying to 3D print it. And maybe that's why. I don't. But some really, really, really nervous cattle ranchers out in Texas right now. Why would independents vote for RFK after witnessing what Biden's destructive liberal policies do? RFK shares those same liberal policies. Colleen, Trump is going to have to make that case. And that's why I said there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. Only target those policies. Don't go after him on the jab, because you think he sounds insane. All right. And that's what Democrats want him to do. You have to go after him on this. Exactly what you're talking about, Colleen. Exactly what you're talking. Green stuff. He's a crackpot on green stuff. He said the NRA is a terrorist organization. I mean, you need to make him sympathetic to Orthodox, now Orthodox, not yesterday's Orthodox, today's Orthodox liberal in the Democratic Party, because then you'll make them more palatable to Democrats. They'll start to think it's unfair that he's being attacked by Trump. Maybe I will vote for RFK. If you attack him on some of the wrong things, you're going to make him more sympathetic to Republicans and Republican-leaning independents. And some of those core true independents, you're just going to they have to win on their own. They're going to have to beat him on those issues. But don't do it again, there's some issues you just can't touch. There's no need to. They don't care about that anyway. Do we know Kennedy's position on sex change procedures on minors, gender 6? I think he opposes procedures, transgender, transitioning from minors, but not for everyone else. Gender 6 books to sex books to children, I don't think we do. I don't think. Ukraine, he is against funding for Ukraine. Second Amendment will bring back those. Well, we already went over this. Both know that RFK Jr. We both know that RFK Jr. will magically get on the ballot in certain states by virtue of helping the Cruz coup. Yeah, Hector, I think you're 100% correct. And West is going to vanish. Supporters, $2. Oh, thank you. And happy Columbus Day to everybody. I'm so pissed my kids do not have off. Listen, Laura and I were raised in Catholic Northeast. Columbus Day is a holiday. Columbus Day is a national holiday. Columbus was a monster. So was everybody else. Thank you, Lamont. Thank you. Columbus was a monster. If it wasn't for Christopher Columbus, never mind. I'm not going to. We should do a whole thing on Columbus. You know what? I didn't get a chance to go over the SREs with locals, but I am going to show you a great column from my old friend, Tom Purcell, who I wish well. Hope all is going well with him. He is the host of Liberty Never Sleeps, a show that runs in Arizona, and also, well, he runs ever. You could watch it anywhere. And also an author of one of the coolest books I've ever read from an independent author called The Return of the Kings. Anyway, back in 2014, in August 13th, 2014, Tom wrote an article for People's Pundit Daily that I edited that I thought was just over the moon awesome. Laura, can you put that in all the chats? It was called, and I put it up there now, it's called Why You Should Celebrate Columbus Day. I'm going to end the show, but really quick before I do, I'm going to run through this. It's not big. And I think that we need to give an homage to Columbus before we bounce out of here. Okay? Why should we celebrate Columbus Day? And let me put it bigger. Bang. What is this? I swear to God, I'm not looking at ridiculously $1,000 rings. I don't know why they would even show that to me. All right. Why should we celebrate Columbus Day? What did Christopher Columbus do? It was not discover the New World, as many people mistakenly believe. Christopher Columbus had both the courage to launch such a daunting voyage and the smarts to monetize the New World once he landed upon it. Many of us have the same opportunities and experiences that billionaires and other mega successful people do, but only a very few are smart enough to recognize them when they came along. It is in this that Columbus stands alone and unique among the early explorers. Most of the early explorers simply came to the New World, dropped the flag, or made some markings and left. However, Columbus recognized the opportunity and seized upon it. Yes, Columbus exposed the native peoples of the Americas to many atrocities, but you cannot apply the ethics of 2012 to the ethics held by the people who lived in 1492. Our morals and standards will be very different from what the people of 2512 will think as well. Perhaps in 2512, they will be more aggressive, or perhaps they may well be compassionate people. Either way, it would be impossible for a man of today to have the moral outlook or education of someone from 500 years of distant separates, either forward or back. Let's also not forget that the indigenous peoples of North America at that time cannibalized and committed atrocities and blood rituals on their own peoples as well as the Europeans. This was common to both cultures. Nevertheless, it was Columbus that was the herald of a changing world, one that brought capitalism and civilization to a nomadic continent. Happy Columbus Day, for without his foresight, in all likelihood, America as we know it would not exist and might never have been given birth to the enlightened people who inhabit it today. It is in this we celebrate, not the exploits or crimes of a single man, but of the day when our identity as Americans began to take root, the day that the future took root in the past, and from which the blossom of America bore its fruit. Without Columbus, there would have been no Jamestown, Without Jamestown, there would have been no Plymouth. Without Plymouth, there would have been no Boston, Philadelphia, or New York. There wouldn't have been no expansion of the world economies with capitalism if we had all still been living in monarchies. There would have been no bulwark against the German menace of World War I. There would have been no defense against communism after that. And what of the indigenous peoples of North America? They most certainly would have been wiped out of existence by the genocidal madness of Nazism. Ironically, without Columbus, there would have been no enlightened Americas who have the freedom of speech and thought to pass judgment upon him today. I mean, and I think, you could argue that maybe some of those things, wouldn't have happened, but some semblance of them would have taken form. And somebody would have wiped them off the map. Anyway, would anything have good have come of it? History changes. Bottom line, the most important thing in that, you cannot hold the morals and values of somebody 500 years separates in the same light. You can't. Anyway, Columbus is big for us. We're Italian, but it's big for everybody. That's it. I don't really see, how they don't. Can you put that back up? That was actually a really good question. They don't count write-ins that day. They're not going to do with it. You're absolutely right. They'll be counted later. People can count them later. But if there were a ton of people who wrote in Donald Trump in the 2024 election, you're not going to see any of it when the results are being reported. They're not even going to count them until much later when somebody else proposes to do so. All you'll see is a fall off in turnout at the presidential level. You will see a massive vote disparity between the popular vote nationwide and not even but nationwide, in different states. You will be seeing it. But yeah, nobody can be elected through a write-in campaign. That's not the point. Actually, that does happen. It can happen. Lisa Murkowski did it. But again, there's no natural process for it. A campaign has to do it. All right. The way he finagled the funds to make it happen. That's right. The way he realized one monarch was never going to give him the money and found one that would. And frankly, I have different beliefs. It's just things that I've studied in the past. I don't think it was an accident that the Nina and the Pinta and the Santa Maria flew the flags they did. And I don't think Columbus was looking for a passage to the east, to India, a Western passage to India. I think he was full of crap and he knew exactly where he was going. All right. But that's a show for another. That is a story for another day. All right. And with that in mind, I'm out. Don't forget, share the public project. Share the public polling project far and wide. All right. And we really do appreciate everybody who's done what they can to contribute and share and whatnot. Best place to follow us is on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. See you on Wednesday, Locals. See you soon. We'll talk polling. Talk results. Use it.